Okay, now coming back to the business. Uh, so let's say this SNG that you're storing this year,
Yes.
like the even the video that I saw, you're storing it like it looks like a cylindrical ice cube,
Yes.
right? And the fun fact is that at 180 m pressure, you can store it inside a normal fridge. So
Yeah.
घर का जो LG का fridge है
Yeah.
उसमें भी हम डाल सकते हैं,
Correct.
right? So the main application as of now, you see it in which industry? The
Okay.
electricity industry?
Okay. Great question. You remember when I talked about competing with CNG and LNG, right? So
Yeah.
CNG के लिए you need 250 bar at atmospheric pressure, and LNG के लिए you need minus 160 degrees at minus 160 degrees at atmospheric pressure. ठीक है?
Mm-hmm.
तो with SNG, what we are able to do is we are actually able to store it at minus 5 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
तो आपका minus 160 से minus 5 आ गया है, and we are
Mm-hmm.
able to store it at 1 atmosphere. So 250 bar से लेके 1 atmosphere, minus 5 degrees and 1 atmosphere, which is, as you said, the condition of a domestic freezer, right?
Normal switch, huh?
But and um, the very important point. The industry that we're looking at is not electricity. What we are looking at is developing a method of storing natural gas for long-term periods. Long-term, and that's the key here. CNG and LNG you can't store for long-term on large scale because
Mm-hmm.
CNG poses that safety risk, and because LNG you need to keep moving it on. Long-term storage के लिए कुछ नहीं है. That is many years, several years. ठीक है? That's where we are looking at this. We are trying to position this technology as a strategic reserve for countries wherein you can use the technology and you can store the natural gas uninterrupted for 2 years, 3 years, or that sort of timeline.
Okay.
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 And why are we doing this? Because LNG ka infrastructure is very highly developed. LNG is a highly mature technology. It is going to be very difficult to disrupt such a mature technology with something that is coming into
New
the
age.
market right now, that is very new. Okay, so how do you gain credibility? You got to gain credibility first, and you can do that by showing that this is actually a technology that can store your natural gas for long term period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
तो सिंगापुर को आप पकड़ लो. सिंगापुर में 95% ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी इज जनरेटेड थ्रू नेचुरल गैस. ठीक है. So natural gas is the key for fuel over here. It will be the key fuel for a foreseeable future, for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ठीक है. So Singapore को चाहिए strategic reserves. Now, what we are promising them is that we'll give you solidified natural gas. We will store 100 volumes of the gas per volume of hydrate, and we will give you uninterrupted storage of the gas for more than 2 years at a time. So you make these gas hydrates, you find out some suitable location that can be an underground rock cavern or something
Mm-hmm.
that you are going to be able to maintain at minus 5 degrees. So let's say जो तुम्हारा room है, the room that you are sitting in, let's say it's at minus 5 degrees. You fill it up with hydrates, you lock it up, you go out, you come back after 2 years, all of the gas will still be in place in the solid hydrate form. ठीक है?
Okay. Okay.
So whenever and wherever you need to release some strategic energy reserves, you can do so from the
Okay.
gas hydrates that you have stored for long-term periods. Then you top it up after 2 years, and then
Top it up in the sense.
then you manufacture new hydrates. Manufacture new hydrates, you use it after 2 years. You can use whatever strategic reserves you have to supplement your normal natural gas that you're using for electricity generation. So after 2 years, you're going to store a new batch, or after 3 years, you store a new batch.
Got it.
So
Got it.
इस तरीका से we are looking at it as a strategic reserve for countries, for industries that need 24/7 power supply. So let's say it's a power plant company, it's a Genco, they need 24/7 power supply. And let's say आपका कुछ तो disruption हो गया in the supply of the gas, then you can use this. You can have a facility on site where you store the natural gas as SNG, and as and when you require, you can use this as a strategic reserve. So that's where we are positioning it. Stationary
अच्छा.
storage, long-term storage of natural gas.
मतलब जैसे मान लो यूएस में there is a huge I mean in domains of oil मैं बता रहा हूँ और even in domains of gas also like उनका storage space को लेके बहुत ज्यादा concern इतना ज्यादा concern है कि just a few months back I guess they were like billing at minus for petrol and gas. So अगर मैं पेट्रोल पंप जा रहा हूँ तो मुझे पैसा मिल रहा है.
अच्छा.
हाँ, so that is what they were doing.
तो आप ऐसे सोचो, कुछ दिन पहले इंडिया ने 5 million barrels of oil रिलीज किया. इंडिया के पास स्ट्रेटेजिक ऑयल रिजर्व्स है.
अच्छा।
तो जब इंडिया को लगा कि यार ऑयल का प्राइस इज इंक्रीजिंग टू मच, आई हैव टू रिलीज सम ऑयल फ्रॉम माय स्ट्रेटेजिक रिजर्व, सो इंडिया ने कुछ ऑयल स्ट्रेटेजिक रिजर्व से किया.
हम्म।
तो एवरी कंट्री हैज स्ट्रेटेजिक एनर्जी रिजर्व्स.
अच्छा।
समझ लो, दैट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू फॉर योर एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी एंड एनर्जी रेजिलियंस
हम्म।
फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर कंट्री. सो हर कंट्री के पास ये होता है. सो दैट्स वे वी आर पोजिशनिंग दिस एज, कि आप सबसे पहले कंट्रीज को दो एज स्ट्रेटेजिक रिजर्व.
मतलब जब जब इमरजेंसी हो तभी आप इसका
हाँ,
इस्तेमाल करें, बाकी
हाँ,
टाइम आप इसको स्टोरेज में रखिए,
हाँ,
ये आपका
स्टोरेज में
स्पेस
रखिए,
कंस्ट्रेंट को घटाएगा और
स्टेशनरी,
एनर्जी।
हाँ, स्टेशनरी
हाँ।
स्टोरेज करके रखिए. And that's the big deal, because you don't need a very high pressure, you don't need a very low temperature to store
हम्म।
this. You are storing at atmospheric pressure at -5 degrees.
विच
ठीक है,
आर इजी टू क्रिएट
which are
कंडीशंस।
very easy to create, and
करेक्ट।
you are able to keep the gas stored inside for 2 years. मैंने एक्सपेरिमेंट किया था where immediately after I came to NUS, I made some hydrates and then I put it in a freezer at -5 degrees and I left it for 2 years with constant monitoring of pressure. 2 साल बाद भी उसका प्रेशर रिलीज नहीं हुआ है. सो इट्स जस्ट स्टेबल फॉर मोर देन 2 years. सो बिकॉज इट्स अ क्लोज सिस्टम, राइट. अगर गैस आपका निकल जाएगा, हाइड्रेट से गैस इवॉल्व हो जाएगा, योर प्रेशर इनसाइड द स्टोरेज वेसल विल इंक्रीज.
या
सो लेट्स से दिस इज माय स्टोरेज वेसल. यहाँ पे ये मेरा हाइड्रेट है, ठीक है, इसमें मेरा गैस ट्रैप्ड है, ठीक है. मैंने इसको -5 डिग्रीज और 1 एटमोसफियर पे स्टोर कर दिया है. Now, if this hydrate is going to dissociate, वो गैस इधर ही इवॉल्व होगा ना, यही इवॉल्व होगा क्लोज सिस्टम में. ये बंद है ऊपर से. सो क्या होगा, गैस आएगा तो इसमें प्रेशर बढ़ेगा. जैसे प्रेशर कुकर में जैसे प्रेशर बढ़ता है वैसे प्रेशर बढ़ेगा. सो आप, मेरे पास प्रेशर मॉनिटरिंग गेज है, यहाँ पे ट्रांसड्यूसर है, वो मेरे को दिखा रहा है कि मेरा प्रेशर अगर बढ़ेगा, देन आई नो दैट माई गैस इज डिसोशिएटिंग. 2 साल के बाद भी प्रेशर इज नॉट इंक्रीजिंग, विच मीन्स द गैस इज ट्रैप्ड इनसाइड. उसको बाद में आप -5 डिग्री से निकाल के रूम टेम्परेचर पर रख दिया आपने, सो इट इज नाउ आउटसाइड द स्टेबिलिटी जोन. तो उसका जैसे धीरे धीरे टेम्परेचर 25 डिग्री आया, यहाँ पे प्रेशर भी बढ़ गया, बिकॉज ऑल द गैस इज आउट, क्योंकि आपका हाइड्रेट डिसोशिएट हो गया. सो दैट वे वी नो दैट दीज हाइड्रेट्स आर एक्चुअली स्टेबल फॉर मोर देन 2 years.
कूल.
कंडीशन.
एक चीज बताओ कि मान लो मैं से लाइक मेरा कंट्री में अभी आई हैड यूज्ड योर प्रोडक्ट एंड आई हैड स्टोर्ड इट.
Yeah.
Up now there is an emergency where I need to use this natural gas. So how do I take that ice? Like मान लो मैं इलेक्ट्रिसिटी के लिए बोल रहा हूँ, so I take it and I put it in a furnace, वो जलाता हूँ. So how do I do that?
It's a very simple process.
How do you get the gas again out of that?
Because it's only physical. ये सिर्फ physical reaction है. There is no chemical reaction happening. ठीक है.
अच्छा.
It is just physically that the water is transforming into a solid product and the gas is going inside. Phase change. It's a phase change reaction in essence. ठीक है. तो अगर आप लेट्स से आपको X प्रेशर और Y टेम्परेचर पे रखना है, ठीक है, फॉर इट टू बी स्टेबल, सो ऑल यू नीड टू डू इज इंक्रीज द टेम्परेचर. जैसे ही आपने टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज किया, पानी और गैस अलग हो गया. यू यूज द गैस फॉर योर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नीड्स और वॉट एवर एनर्जी नीड्स यू हैव. यू रिसाइकल द वाटर बैक एंड द वाटर विल गो बैक टू फॉर्म हाइड्रेट.
बट ये आप डालते कहाँ हो? कि मतलब ये शायद बहुत सिली क्वेश्चन लगे, बट आपके पास वो क्यूब है, राइट? अभी आप इसका टेम्परेचर अगर इंक्रीज करेंगे तो गैस निकल के आएगा, पानी निकल के आएगा, राइट? सो हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू मेक श्योर दैट गैस इज नॉट फ्लाइंग अवे? यू आर जस्ट पुटिंग इट. सो हाउ डू, वेयर डू यू प्लेस इट?
Yeah, that's in a storage vessel, right? You put that in a storage vessel, and the storage vessel is going to double up as your transport equipment or as a beginning of your pipeline.
Correct.
ठीक है ना? So you just have a leak proof connection and then the gas will flow.
वो पानी नीचे आ जाएगा and the gas is
पानी नीचे रह जाएगा. Then you recycle the water back, right? और वो water will go back for your second run of hydrate formation. मैंने ऐसा अपने पेपर में दिखाया भी है कि the chemicals that we use, dioxylene and L-tryptophan, that entire concoction, it is good for more than 10 runs. Same solution आप 10 बार यूज कर रहे हो, but you have no impact on the performance of the solution. So
अच्छा, मतलब the liquid that is laying behind, you can again reuse it.
Yes,
that's amazing.
We've shown it for 10 runs basically. 10 times you use the same solution and it still gives you the same sort of results even after 10 runs.
So you're telling me there is no loss in the promoters and the chemicals?
Look, there will be some loss.
There will be some
loss. There's no way you can avoid that. But even if you recycle it for 10 times, if you are still within a certain range of performance, you are still good.
Okay.
So, अच्छा एक चीज मुझे जानना था that in a lab when you are making this gas get inside that hydrate, how do you do that? मतलब अगर बहुत आसान भाषा में if you
Okay.
explain, so
Okay.
like आपके पास गैस का storage है क्या? Like how do you do that? I don't
Okay.
know.
So in the lab it's very simple. Okay. Let's say ये मेरा reactor है. ये मेरा पानी है यहाँ पे. ठीक है. मैंने पानी भर दिया उसमें. Now I connect this opening, right? इसको मैंने गैस लाइन से कनेक्ट कर दिया. I have a cylinder. Let's say I have a cylinder of methane. I connect it to this line, and then I fill this up until I see the pressure go to where I want it to be. Let's say मेरे को 40 बार प्रेशर पे काम करना है. So I fill this up with the cylinder. Cylinder is at a higher pressure. Cylinder let's say 100 bar pressure पे है. Cylinder से 100 bar पे आ रहा है. As soon as the pressure inside this vessel goes to 40, I close the valve, and then I separate this out. Then the gas and the water do their own thing inside.
That automatically, that's a physical reaction that just
That reaction will happen because now you are at that temperature and pressure. There is no way it won't happen. You cannot. There's no one who can stop it. Well, there are people who can stop it, but that's a different kettle of fish altogether. There are certain chemicals you can add to stop the reaction, and that's another point that you should be very focused on oilgasm because it's very big in the flow assurance industry. Gas hydrate plugs forming in the oil and gas pipelines is a very big deal in flow assurance. So
and it is generally like it harms the flow, right? To the
yes, it harms the flow. तो क्या होता है ना कोल्ड कंट्रीज में let's say ये पाइपलाइन है यहाँ से मेरा ये जा रहा है गैस हाइड्रोकार्बन फ्लो हो रहा है एंड लेट्स से इट्स अ वेरी कोल्ड कंट्री तो वहाँ पे -20 डिग्री या जो भी है वहाँ पे इन द कॉर्नर्स स्पेशली और कभी कभी पूरा होल पाइपलाइन में ही एक पूरा हाइड्रेट का प्लग बन जाता है बिकॉज आपको वो टेम्परेचर और प्रेशर मिल जाता है तो वो प्लग बना देता है हाइड्रेट का and then that harms the flow.
Correct.
So in that case, now you need to add chemicals that are known as inhibitors. वो chemical क्या करेगा? वो chemical रोकेगा formation. And कैसे रोकेगा? It's the same mechanism as the one that I was talking about when it binds with the water and it opens up the cage.
ये open की जगह पे बस ऐसे बंद कर देगा.
पकड़ के रखेगा ताकि वो अपने में bond करके cage ना बना पाए.
Got it. Amazing. अच्छा एक चीज बताओ. So your present product is only going to focus in the B2B market, not in the D2C.
Yes. Yeah, अभी हम लोग B2B देख रहे हैं. D2C बहुत मुश्किल है देख. It's honestly very difficult at this point of time to go for D2C. But hold on, I made a note about this. Where's this one? Yeah. So we'll talk about D2C. Yeah, it's tough. I'm not sure. हम लोग बाद में if the correct application arises, you know, if a client comes to us with the correct application, and the economics work out, it might be an option. But as you can understand, you need a -5
correct application. अभी मतलब मैं जितना सोच पा रहा हूँ कि
you need a -5 degree storage. You need a -5 degree storage, and you need the gas to burn, right? आपको गैस भेजना है. You cannot send the pellets.
Correct.
So you need to send the gas. So when you are sending the gas, whether to send D2C, your storage system is SNG or CNG. That's the point that you have to see. So let's say.
And more importantly, like मैं इसका इस्तेमाल कहाँ करूँगा? Like can I use it in the fueling space or in the?
Let's say मेरा एक point है. मेरा एक point A है. Let's say मेरा एक point A है. Let's say एक CNG station है. चलो. Let's say एक CNG station है. CNG station में all the cars are coming to fill up the CNG, right? Now CNG station को जो supply कर रहा है, that storage, is it in the form of CNG or is it in the form of SNG? So the source for the CNG station is where you can use this technique, because the consumer will only get the gas.
So but then again, like it is catering again in the B2B market.
B2B. For B2B हो गया फिर. If you are going to petrol, it's B2B only. So it's B2B, yes.
The end product is basically gas, so that can't be like gas. It will come. We can't do it like D2C. Sorry, like हम pellets को नहीं बेच सकते. Basically,
we can't really send the pellet to the consumer. तो
उसका consumer को इस्तेमाल ही नहीं कर पाएगा.
वही operation wise भी बहुत difficult हो जाएगा वो.
D2C, yeah. Just to put on a lighter note, there is a D2C scope, not with natural gas, but lighter note. Yeah? Don't take this as my technical, as proof of my technical ineptitude or expertise. But I'll just give you an example of D2C with gas hydrates. So as I told you, मीथेन से हम लोग सॉलिडिफाइड नेचुरल गैस बनाते हैं. But you remember when we first talked about, I said we made some CO2 hydrates. So let's say मैं CO2 के pellets बना रहा हूँ, small pellets that also look like ice. So you sell that to the food and beverage industry. ठीक है? You sell that to the food and beverage industry, and you make these sort of portable storage devices जहाँ पे you can maintain a very small pressure and a very small and a low temperature to keep the pellet stable. The food and beverage industry can actually use CO2 pellets as a sort of fancy ice cube that generates soda in the glass. So when you put it, you put that pellet, you have some, let's say you have a bit of whiskey, and you put the pellet inside. The pellet is going to come in contact with the hot whiskey or the room temperature whiskey, is going to dissociate, is going to add the water, and it's also going to add the effervescence on its own.
Yeah, and वो धुआं भी, it's going to make it look like a sexy cocktail.
So then that can be an example of D2C. But again, that's just.
But ये I think ये already इस्तेमाल हो रहा है, right? I mean, in all the.
ये नहीं हो रहा. They use liquid nitrogen. They use dry gas, which is solid CO2. But CO2 hydrates नहीं use होते.
अच्छा.
Coming to CO2 hydrates, can this hydrate technology be used for carbon capture technology too?
Of course it does. And that's the idea that I had when I talked about that pumistone. Right? Of course it does. It can not only be used for carbon sequestration, it can also be used for carbon capture from mixed gas streams. So let's say तुम्हारा fuel gas है या flue gas है. Fuel gas क्या होता है? CO2H2. तो आपके blast furnace में जा रहा है. या फिर flue gas है, CO2N2. मैंने क्या बोला था तुम लोगों को कि there is a rule of thumb कि जितना बड़ा molecule है उतना कम pressure चाहिए उसको. करेक्ट? अभी मेरा CO2 और N2 या CO2H2 में कौन सा बड़ा molecule है? CO2. राइट? तो आपको अगर CO2 और H2 का गैस मिक्सचर है, हाइड्रोजन को ज्यादा प्रेशर चाहिए टू फॉर्म हाइड्रेट, CO2 को कम प्रेशर चाहिए टू फॉर्म हाइड्रेट. आई गो टू अ प्रेशर दैट इज इन बिटवीन द रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर हाइड्रोजन एंड CO2. सो लेट्स से CO2 यहाँ है, हाइड्रोजन यहाँ है, मैं इस प्रेशर में अपना गैस इनपुट करता हूँ, तो इस प्रेशर में सिर्फ CO2 अंदर जाएगा, हाइड्रोजन नहीं जाएगा, बिकॉज हाइड्रोजन विल नॉट स्टेबलाइज द केज. समझ रहे हो? तो जो तुम्हारा प्रोडक्ट बनेगा, सॉलिड प्रोडक्ट बनेगा, उसमें सिर्फ CO2 रहेगा, और जो तुम्हारा ऊपर में गैस बच जाएगा, दैट विल बी हाइड्रोजन रिच. सो इन दैट वे यू यूज गैस हाइड्रेट टेक्नोलॉजी टू सेपरेट टू गैसेस.
But इसमें again like I have this complete layman सवाल कि ये CO2 और H2 जो हम लोग लेंगे, ये कहाँ से लेंगे? Like जैसे मान लो तुम्हारे पास एक, जैसे जब तुम नेचुरल गैस हाइड्रेट,
कोई भी पॉइंट सोर्स पावर प्लांट से अगर आ रहा है ना, देन कोई भी पॉइंट सोर्स कंबस्शन हो रहा है, कंबस्शन होके यू हैव CO2 and H2. These are byproducts. So you are going to use that byproduct. उसमें से you are going to use the sequestrate the CO2 or capture the CO2. H2 you can use for any sort of further energy source, clean energy source.
इसका कोई कारण है कि अभी तक इसका बहुत ज्यादा इस्तेमाल हम नहीं देखते? हम लोग बहुत ज्यादा सुनते हैं इसके बारे में, लाइक वाइस का बहुत ज्यादा डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज है, मैं उस दिन BBC का भी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री देख रहा था. सो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ दोस थिंग्स. इन नेदरलैंड्स फॉर एग्जांपल दे हैव क्रिएटेड अ CO2 कैप्चर टेक्नोलॉजी एंड एक्सेट्रा, बट इसका इस्तेमाल अभी भी उतना फुल फ्लेजेड तरीके से नहीं है. इसका कोई कारण है स्पेसिफिक?
नहीं यार, आई मीन इट्स जस्ट दैट उस तरीका से इंडस्ट्रीज हैव नॉट कॉट ऑन टू इट. एकेडमिक सर्कल्स में तो काम हो रहा है, आई मीन पीपल आर डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ स्टफ, बट इट नीड्स funding and backing from private industries if it needs to be successful. I think that's the only reason. Otherwise I don't see a lot more reason, because academic research mein you can only go up to a certain point of time.
Also, is it that key companies don't want to invest in it because they don't find a return on this investment? Is that so?
Maybe it's possible.
क्यों कोई ROI नहीं है, return on investment है नहीं?
It's possible that they are looking at other technologies that they think are going to be, that are more mature, or are going to be they don't want to invest in R&D and create a new technology. Anyway, CO2 capture was not that big a thing until 10 years back. People were not really thinking about it too much. Emissions हो ही रहता है ऐसे भी, right? So people are not really thinking about it. People are happy burning oil. People are happy burning natural gas. People are happy burning coal. Nobody's thinking about what to do with the CO2. And there are certain technologies that are very easy. You can use certain sort of chemicals to absorb CO2. वो कर रहे हो आप ठीक है, and you are happy with whatever you have, so then it's a sort of stability. But now that CO2 capture is really dominating all business models and really dominating everybody's agendas, now you're going to look at more sort of techniques that you can actually use to capture the CO2.
But
So
Gaurav,
now I assume that these technologies are going to be in a lot more focus, and industries are going to spend a lot more to try and get the technologies out in the open.
बट गौरव मान लो कि मैं एक ऐसा मतलब मैं एकदम बिजनेसमैन हूँ, एक बिल्कुल धंधा वाला, उसको कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है एनवायरनमेंट वगैरह इन सब के बारे में. तो अगर मैं ये CO2 कैप्चर टेक्नोलॉजी डालूंगा तो मैं तभी डालूंगा जब मुझे कोई फायदा दिखेगा, कोई मुनाफा दिखेगा.
श्योर.
हाँ, तो इसका कोई मुनाफा है, मतलब बिजनेस वाइज इसका कोई मुनाफा है?
देखो, उसमें तो डिपेंड करता है कि आप कौन से देश में बिजनेस कर रहे हो. ठीक है. If your government actually has incentives for you, if you are able to capture your CO2 or sequester your CO2, or you are able to reduce your emissions, and the government has incentives for you, then you are going to be able to say कि okay, I am seeing something, government आपको carbon credits offer कर रहे हैं. Then you're going to be like, okay, I am getting some sort of incentive to do this. Otherwise, there's so many businessmen, right, who just don't care. Just don't care. वो बोलेगा कि मैं क्यों पैसे खर्च करूँ अपना. तो आपके रेगुलेटरी बॉडीज और आपके गवर्नमेंट को इंसेंटिवाइज करना पड़ेगा. इफ एंड दैट्स हाउ पीपल आर गोइंग टू चेंज, राइट. या फिर आप ऐसा करो कि आप क्या उसको बोलते हैं, आप फॉसिल फ्यूल के प्राइसेस बढ़ा दो. गवर्नमेंट शुड इंक्रीज द फॉसिल फ्यूल प्राइसेस, एंड देन that forces people to go into renewables, you know.
Okay.
There's a couple of ways to do that.
Okay. अच्छा, और you know, तो ये जो SNG है, मान लो SNG का जो एक सिलेंडर है, उसका मतलब डायमेंशन क्या है मुझे नहीं पता है. Like how much is it?
The one that you are seeing in the video is
like how you are quantifying it कि इतना यूनिट.
Yeah, I think that one is 5.5 centimeter into 5 centimeter, if I'm not mistaken. But ये बोलो, don't look at that pellet. Look at the number itself. The number is per volume of SNG.
Yeah.
You have 115 volumes of gas.
Correct.
तो आपका pellet का कोई भी साइज हो सकता है. It can be anything. It can be anything. It can be X volume.
so the
but उसमें गैस रहेगा 115x.
तो जिस यूनिट के ऊपर पैसा बनेगा, that is energy density basically, right?
Yes, correct.
अगर मैं सही समझ रहा हूँ.
Correct.
ठीक है. तो इसको बनाने के लिए और इसको बेचने के लिए कितना, like how much is the cost that is coming to make that one pallet, और उसे बेचने, like at what price are you planning to?
For make, I can tell you. For make, the price is about $1 per MMBTU natural gas, million British thermal unit. $1 per MMBTU natural gas. For comparison, LNG liquefy करने के लिए you need about $2.5 to $3 per MMBTU natural gas.
Okay.
That's the comparison, and that's what it takes us to form the pellet, get it into the storage.
Okay. मतलब
ठीक है. I store it and I do that process. उसके आगे का economics we will have to calculate, and that can only be done as we scale up, because when you scale up, a lot of things are going to change. So it's premature to do that right now.
But I mean, even at manufacturing cost, you are at pretty low.
Yeah, because you don't need fancy equipment, right? You don't need minus 160 degrees. You don't need such huge compression. So in that way, we are really, really well placed as compared to CNG or LNG. But very important point to note, and I would be doing an injustice to LNG if I don't say this. The key point why people stick with LNG is because LNG में you get 600 volumes of gas per volume of LNG. Whereas हमारे process में the maximum you can get is 115. तो आपका 1/4 volume है. 1/4 volume है, which means you need lot more space to store SNG as compared to LNG. ठीक है, but वही trade off है. You don't need minus 160 degrees. You don't need minus 160 degrees. You don't need the cost of liquefaction. But at the end of the day, you're going to need 4 times the space as compared to LNG.
to create SNG, what is the pressure that you are imparting to
Well,
create that
depends.
SNG, that
Depends.
एक pellet?
Depends. We can make SNG at 30 bar, 40 bar, or 70 bar. When we talk about the 12-minute mark, we are doing it at 10 degrees,
10
10
degrees, and
degrees and 70 bar.
still it's pretty
It's,
good.
it's, it's pretty good.
I
It's pretty
mean, compared to LNG का pressure के हिसाब से देखेंगे, और
It's
अगर
pretty good. It's pretty good.
हाँ
If for
टेम्पर
comparison you need a pressure and temperature, or what pressure and temperature you need under the seabed. Seabed में you need 4 degrees usually, 4 degrees, maybe even less than that, depending on which part of the world you are in, and you need more than 100 bar pressure, so more than 120 bar pressure. तो उस पे आप सी बेड पे बना रहे हो. We are making it at 10 degrees and 70 bar. In fact, I have just published a paper yesterday जिसमें I am actually making this at 20 degrees. 20 degrees and 100 bar, or 20 degrees and 120 bar, ऐसा कुछ तो था. I can't remember. 100 bar. 20 degrees and 100 bar, and we are able to achieve 108 volumes per volume. So सिर्फ plus 0.7 to get to the theoretical limit.
Correct. So your USP is basically that कि आपका टेम्परेचर को इतना -163 पे लाने का जरूरत नहीं पड़ रहा है, आपको प्रेशर को इतना बढ़ाने का जो कॉस्ट था वो भी आपका बच जा रहा है.
Yeah, that's right.
And the challenge with SNG is what? One is that the energy density is coming lower compared to
Right
LNG.
now there are few challenges. Right now the first challenge, of course, is, as you mentioned, key energy density. You are not going to get 600 volumes. There is no way. That's just the limitation of the process. Okay? I think we are at 108 bola na maine. I think maybe it's 102. I can't remember exactly.
ठीक है, it's
Okay.
almost
But yeah, we are there. We are there. So 115 hai wo. And then now what you need is the expertise to develop a large scale process. Automation चाहिए, industrial scale automation चाहिए. You need the people who. I'm sorry, guys.
no good.
Okay.
You can take that if you want to pause for a moment and you
I'll
want to take it.
just tell them that we'll call them back. Yeah, let's get this done. Yeah. So now we are at a stage. Do you guys know about technology readiness ladder for TRLs, technology readiness levels for technologies?
नहीं,
No.
मुझे कोई आइडिया नहीं है.
So let me just give you a brief about that. तो क्या होता है कि कोई भी टेक्नोलॉजी अगर आप बना रहे हो, it has to go through a process of development, and that is called your technology readiness level ladder, TRL ladder. ठीक है, TRL ladder से क्या होता है? It gives an indication of where the technology is or where the maturity of the technology is. For समय TRL3 अगर है, TRL3 means आपका lab scale validation हो गया है, 2 में experimental proof of concept हो गया है, TRL4 में कुछ और है ऐसे, whatever you want it to be. ठीक है, तो वी आर एट अ TRL of 4, विच मीन्स कि हमने बेंच स्केल वैलिडेशन किया हुआ है. ठीक है, बेंच स्केल, इट इज बिगर देन लैब स्केल बट लेस स्मॉलर देन पायलट स्केल. बेंच स्केल वैलिडेशन किया हुआ है. नाउ वी नीड द फंड्स टू गो टू पायलट स्केल, एंड वंस वी आर एट पायलट स्केल वी नीड टू डू द फाइनल कमर्शियल रिफाइनमेंट, एंड वी नीड टू टेस्ट इट इन द वर्किंग एनवायरमेंट. सो लेट्स से मेरा एक क्लाइंट है, मेरे को क्लाइंट के साइट पे सेटअप करना है. सो आई नीड टू गो टू द क्लाइंट साइट, आई नीड टू do a working prototype at the client side, and that's when my technology is ready to be launched commercially. So the real challenge now is to scale it up and scale it up well, and basically get the sort of expertise that you need to do scaled up technologies, and that can only come from the industry, क्योंकि industry ही करता है large scale stuff. We are academicians, we do, I mean, we can do large scale stuff, but we don't have the expertise. We need somebody to show us the right way. So that's the main issue, and we are working with the correct people to try and do this.
ठीक है, मेरा आखिरी 2 सवाल है आपसे.
Yeah.
पहला कि do you think that PhD students, especially अगर इंडिया के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात करूं, they should also start becoming a bit aware of the markets. They should also start figuring out how they can post their PhD, post their research. They can also start making money by actually doing the work for which they entered the PhD, for which they enrolled in the PhD program. In most of the cases, it's sad to see that there are so many PhDs in India who are jobless, like who are not getting an employment, and finally they have to join in a small college or in a school teaching subject. I mean, that's not why they went into PhD in that context. But is there also this thing that in India we have this fascination for tags, thappas, कि हाँ मेरे नाम के पीछे एक डॉक्टर है, so मुझे वो डॉक्टर चाहिए. So is that so? What do you think?
देखो दोनों चीज है. ओके, Yeah, there is a fascination with this, with the tag, and from what I have seen firsthand, is that there is definitely a lack of awareness of the sort of careers that you can have after your PhD. Most people in India do a PhD to become a professor. Okay, and that is why when they have that end goal in mind, they don't look at anything else. So
Hmm.
awareness आएगा कहाँ से,
हाँ.
right? Because you only have one goal, you want to be a professor, and then you want to be set for life. India में वही है, that's the concept, right? I become a professor, I get a permanent job, and then I'm good. I'm good to go. India में there is no concept of tenure also, so you don't need to work very hard for 3 years to get tenure and then become permanent in your university. Depends on some universities might have it, but yeah. So people want to be a professor in some college, whatever that might be, and they want to want to have stability for life. So they only know one thing कि भाई मैं academic research करूंगा and then I'll go and become a professor. So there is not the big inclination to go into what they are researching because the idea is to become a professor.
ठीक है.
So there are, of course, there are some people who are aware of a lot of stuff. Even in my PhD, I did encounter such people who knew that PhDs can make it big in consulting, who knew that PhDs can go into industrial research, who knew that PhDs can basically go into market research, because research is a skill that you develop. You know how to write, you know how to research. So you can't
Hmm.
need to be just academic research. You can go and work uh, at a Wood McKinsey, or you can go and you can work at a McKinsey that makes reports on natural gas, for example, right? Forecasts on natural gas. You can just go and do that. So and you'll be well paid for it. So now, of course, there needs to be education and awareness about all these topics, but I think that universities should also include these things in their curriculum for PhDs. And PhDs
Yeah,
need
like
to be aware of what sort of paths you can take, or how to
I,
leverage your talents to the to for your own benefit.
I
That
think
there
एक
was a
पहला सवाल पूछना चाहिए जब भी कोई पीएचडी के लिए इंटरव्यू दे रहा है कि क्यों करना है पीएचडी और पीएचडी के बाद क्या करना है वो जरूर
that's
पूछना
a, that's
चाहिए.
that's a good thing. Yeah, that's definitely a good way to go about it. And I'm sure that most people wouldn't know.
हाँ.
Had they asked me this in 2013, I don't know what I would have answered.
Okay.
So
And my final concluding question is, what are your thoughts on the ever increasing cost of our oil prices in India? ये तो
yeah,
कभी खत्म
I
ही
mean,
नहीं हो रहा है. 100 रुपए सेंचुरी भी
I,
पार कर गए हम.
yeah, we touched upon that, right? हमने touch कर लिया ना उस पे कि
Hmm.
Yes.
कि it's not a very straightforward equation. It's not straight line equation. Y equal to mx plus c नहीं हो रहा इधर. You have center levies. You have excise duty. You have state levies. Um, there are no.
Actually, price आ जाना
Yeah,
चाहिए somewhere
देखो
around.
and you touched upon the GST thing, right? कि uh, we're not charging GST on this.
नहीं.
So direct revenue source for center or for state, one of the biggest thing is energy, oil and natural
Hmm.
gas. तो आप ऑयल पे एक्साइज लगा रहे हो, आप ऑयल पे ड्यूटी लगा रहे हो, एंड वो पब्लिक इज पेइंग फॉर दैट, राइट? एंड the price of crude is going to be the same for everybody, right? India mein jo aa raha hai is going to be the same for other places as well. There might be little disruptions due to transport and all, but this is one of the biggest revenue streams for the government, and that's why that's a harsh reality that we are faced with. And I don't think unless and until regulatory practices change, there's not a lot we can do about it.
Well, I mean, if you give me a chance, I'll rant about the our taxation policies
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
the
I
next
can,
1 hour.
I can
क्योंकि
understand that this is one
क्योंकि
of your
मेरे पास
topics.
अभी जो सैलरी भी आता है वो भी मेरे देखने से पहले ही कट के आ जाता है. सीरियसली कट के आ जाता
Yeah,
है.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can imagine. I can imagine that.
उसके ऊपर हर एक चीज में
Thankfully,
जीएसटी.
thankfully, the salary I had when I was in India was really not enough for me to pay any taxes. So
Cool. Cool. I mean that is what. I mean, yeah, that's a joke. Like
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
best joke that we can crack
Oh
right
yes,
now.
oh yes, and that is another reason why research and innovation in India is not going anywhere. If you do not treat your in academicians with respect, or if you do not treat the people who are going to do the work for you or the research for you with respect, or with the even pay them what they deserve, then why are they going to stay there? You tell me.
हाँ मतलब मान लो एक 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 पूरा स्ट्रेनस ऑफिस वीक के बाद कहीं पे दारू पीने का मन हुआ,
Yeah.
उधर भी टैक्स देना पड़ रहा है मुझे,
You tell me why? Why?
जीएसटी।
Why? I mean, the pay disparity in researchers in India and the rest of the world is just so stark,
ह्यूमंगस,
so stark,
ह्यूमंगस।
so stark.
अब
अभी अभी देखो मैंने भी तो PhD इंडिया में किया ना,
Hmm.
but I didn't stay, right? So मतलब क्या है? What's the point? What's the point, right? I would have liked to do a lot of. I would have liked this technology to have come from India, right? अगर SNG
Right.
technology India से आता, that would have been a great thing for us, and we could have positioned ourselves in such a brilliant way. India में you are getting a unicorn every what, I don't know, 2-3 weeks or whatever.
यप।
So I mean, companies would come running to the government for to fund these sort of projects had it emerged from India. But that's just the harsh reality that you are not able to retain your talent.
बट इसका वो यूनिकॉर्न जो बन रहा है, दैट इज क्रेडिट लॉट गो लेस टू द गवर्नमेंट एंड मोर टू द प्राइवेट
I
एजेंसीज,
agree. I
बिकॉज़
agree.
दे आर द वंस हु आर प्राइमरीली
I
फंडिंग
agree.
इट।
I do agree about that.
तो वो
I do agree with that.
ऑलमोस्ट कोई भी मतलब कुछ कोई भी ले लो, अपग्रेड ले लो, क्रेड ले लो, कोई भी गवर्नमेंट से फंडिंग नहीं
No,
उठा रहा है।
when I said about the government, I meant if deep tech technology comes out from your country that has the potential to be one of the bigger things in the future, and has a potential to impact all of the world, right? So then the government is the one who should be actually positioning it as sort of, उसमें आप लगाओ ना make in India, and you promote the company as an
Yeah.
Indian company who is trying to do all these things. But and then you might be able to get faster deals, you might be able to get bigger deals, you might be able to get entire states involved in funding the company, so, or in funding the technology, and that would only position India better in the other parts of the world. That's what I tried to say. I didn't mean that the government is going to be the one pushing all of the unicorns or the companies, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with this startup culture coming in and almost, I think after this show Shark Tank, at least, I guess there will
Yeah.
be a lot of change. I mean, there are,
Yeah. Let me tell you guys one thing. So,
huh,
the natural gas resources that we're talking about, right? That occur naturally. So these resources, the country that has the most amount of these resources, or the best resources, or the most dense and the most recoverable resources as natural gas hydrates. Which country has that?
is it
India?
India?
It's India.
I
It's
always think
India.
that India is not blessed with enough crude and
Yes,
enough
but
natural
India
gas.
has natural gas hydrates, and if Indian government were bold enough or brave enough or decided to invest enough, it could get all the natural gas that it wanted for itself and for the rest of the world. But we are not going anywhere. I have spent 8 years myself in this field, and the situation is the same today as it was 8 years ago. India has the most dense and the most recoverable natural gas hydrate resources in the world. And if you were able to recover those resources, you would not see oil inflation, I'm telling you.
Then, Gaurav, I'm trying to understand why is it not happening? Like there are big companies like Reliance and even Adani is
Yes,
also
yes,
coming in, and ONGC government sector. Why
yes.
are why aren't these people jumping into this
I
big
couldn't tell you.
opportunity?
I couldn't tell you. There have been a number of expeditions in India, and that's how we know that India has these resources. And the expeditions have had participants from the government, from ONGC, from IOCL, from GAIL, all sorts of people. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you the answer to that. Why it's not happening? Maybe Reliance and Adani are already moving towards renewables now. They're not interested in
Hmm.
natural gas anymore.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
Reliance and
very
Adani,
just recently, I think Tata and Reliance, they
yeah.
both joined hand
So
for
Reliance
green.
and Adani are already out of the picture, right? Now, if you have
Hmm.
to do it, you have to get ONGC, you have to get GAIL. These are the two big players that can actually make a difference. GAIL sponsored our entire PhD work. The technique that we talked about, that was sponsored completely by GAIL. The patent is shared between NCL and GAIL. Um, but I don't know what people are thinking, whether they actually want to exploit the resources or not.
But
It's
but do you think that with the incoming of, let's say, there are talks going on in the government that we might even go on to privatize our energy sectors too?
yeah,
Do you think that that is going to bring in innovation focus? Because if the government is owning all of that, then probably the government will take the profit from the profit making sector and put it into the loss making sector to make the loss making sector run. So therefore, the money for innovation is gone.
yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know because I think the private sector has, in its outlook, moved away from fossil fuels. Okay, it has moved away from fossil fuels. It is focusing on renewables. When you talk about renewables, it has to be accompanied with research and development because we are not at a stage right now where we can harness the power of renewables immediately. We have to develop our capabilities. We have
In
to
terms
develop
of, in terms of,
anything. So you have to develop your capabilities with regards to solar. You have to develop your capabilities with regards to other green sources such as green hydrogen. You have to develop everything. You cannot just move away from fossil fuels and say that it's renewables. That we are now moving to renewables, but that's what I'm saying. When it involve private sector, the private big players in the private sectors are at least trying to move towards renewables now, and they see this as making value or making profit maybe a few years down the line, 10 years or
yeah,
I don't know how
yeah,
many.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so at this point of time, I don't know how that is going to stifle research and innovation, but yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's something
I'm pretty sure it is not
that
as
we have
black and
to,
white, as the
yeah,
way I
something we
think.
have to wait and watch.
Hi, this is Tanir. We hope that you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please do feel free to let us know your thoughts, your ideas on the same in the comment section. If you enjoyed our video, please do like and share it as much as possible. And of course, please do subscribe to Orgasm. Thank you.